If this makes you question the education system, smash that subscribe button and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. I went to a high school in Ohio where our principal had a complete psychotic breakdown during a pep rally. We were all in the gym for a Friday afternoon assembly. Normal pep rally stuff. The principal got up to speak and started his usual boring announcements. Then mid-sentence, he just stopped talking. Complete silence. He stared out at all of us for like 30 seconds. Everyone thought he forgot what he was saying. Then he started screaming. Not talking loud. Full volume screaming. He said we were all worthless. He said our generation was doomed. He said none of us would amount to anything. Students were looking at each other confused. Teachers started standing up. He kept going. He said he wasted 15 years of his life on ungrateful brats. He said we didn't deserve education. He grabbed the microphone stand and threw it across the gym. It hit the basketball hoop and the microphone exploded with feedback. Everyone covered their ears. He jumped off the stage and started ripping down the decorations. Banners, posters, streamers, everything. He was pulling them down and throwing them on the floor. Teachers ran over to stop him. He shoved the first teacher who tried to grab him. The teacher fell backwards into the bleachers. Students screamed. 3 more teachers tackled him. He was fighting all of them, kicking and swinging. It took 4 grown men to hold him down. He was still screaming, crying, and screaming about how much he hated his job. The vice principal told everyone to evacuate the gym. 1,000 students filed out in chaos. We could still hear him screaming from outside. Ambulances showed up. Paramedics sedated him. They put him on a stretcher and took him away. We didn't have school for 3 days. Parents got an email saying he had a medical emergency and wouldn't be returning. We never saw him again. Students who filmed it posted the videos online. They went viral. The district threatened to sue anyone who didn't delete them. Most people kept them up anyway. We found out later he'd been having panic attacks for months and was on a bunch of medication that he stopped taking. The combination of stress and going cold turkey made him snap. He never worked in education again. Last I heard, he's a park ranger in Montana. My friend went to a primary school in Bristol where the head teacher got arrested for attacking a parent with a stapler. Parents' evening. Normal night. This dad came in to talk about his daughter's grades. The meeting started fine. Then the dad said his daughter was failing because the teachers weren't doing their jobs. The head teacher said that wasn't true. The dad said his daughter was smart, and if she was failing, it was the school's fault. The head teacher said maybe his daughter wasn't paying attention. The dad stood up and said, "Are you calling my kid stupid?" The head teacher said, "I'm saying she's distracted." The dad said, "By what? Your shitty teaching?" The head teacher stood up and told him to leave. The dad said, "Make me." The head teacher grabbed a stapler off the desk and threw it at him. Not like tossed it, hurled it with full force. It hit the dad in the forehead. The dad stumbled backwards, bleeding. The head teacher realized what she did and froze. The dad was holding his head. Blood was running down his face. His wife started screaming. The head teacher tried to apologize. The dad said, "You just assaulted me." Other parents heard the commotion and came into the hallway. The dad's wife called the police. The head teacher tried to leave. Parents blocked the door. She said, "Let me out." They said, "You're not going anywhere." The police showed up 10 minutes later. The dad was still bleeding. Paramedics bandaged his head. The cut needed stitches. The police asked what happened. Multiple witnesses said the head teacher threw the stapler. She tried to say it was an accident. Someone said, "You don't accidentally throw a stapler at someone's face." She was arrested right there. Parents watched as she was put in handcuffs and walked out. Her mugshot was in the local paper the next day. She was charged with assault with a weapon. The stapler was considered a weapon. She pled guilty and got 6 months in jail plus probation. She lost her teaching license. The dad sued the school district for £100,000. They settled. The school had to hire a new head teacher in the middle of the year. I attended a school in Texas where our principal came to work completely wasted and tried to teach a class. He showed up at 7:30 in the morning, stumbling through the hallways. His tie was loose. His shirt was untucked. He reeked of alcohol. A teacher asked if he was okay. He said, "Never better," and slurred his words. The teacher told him he should go home. He said, "I have a job to do." He went to his office. Around 9 a.m, a math teacher called in sick. The principal decided he would cover the class himself. He walked into a room full of sophomores and said, "Pop quiz." The students were confused. He hadn't taught a class in 10 years. He tried to write a math problem on the board. His handwriting was illegible. He drew a shape that was supposed to be a triangle but looked like a blob. A student raised her hand and asked if he was feeling all right. He said, "Why does everyone keep asking me that?" His words were slurred. Another student said, "Mr. Johnson, you smell like alcohol." He said, "That's cologne." It was absolutely not cologne. A student texted their parent. The parent called the school. The vice principal came to check on him. She walked in and immediately knew he was drunk. She told him to come with her. He refused. He said, "I'm teaching." She said, "You're drunk." He said, "Prove it." She called security. 2 security guards came and escorted him out. He was yelling the whole way. Students were filming it. He was fired that day. The school board didn't even hold a hearing. They reviewed the videos and terminated him immediately. Parents demanded to know how he got into the building drunk. The district had no answer. He checked into rehab a week later. He never worked in education again. A student posted the video and it got 3 million views. The comments were brutal. I went to a school in Leeds where the head teacher got into a fist fight with the deputy head in front of students. They'd been having issues for months. Professional disagreements that turned personal. One day it boiled over. They were both in the hallway during class change. Hundreds of students around. The deputy head said something under his breath. The head teacher turned around and said, "What did you say?" The deputy head said, "You heard me." The head teacher got in his face and said, "Say it again." The deputy head said, "You're a terrible leader." The head teacher shoved him. The deputy head shoved back harder. Then they were throwing punches. Full-on brawl in the middle of the hallway. Students were screaming and pulling out phones. Teachers ran over to break it up. It took 3 teachers to separate them. Both men were breathing heavy and bleeding. The head teacher had a bloody nose. The deputy head had a cut above his eye. A teacher said, "What is wrong with you two?" Neither of them answered. They were both told to go to their offices. The head teacher refused. He said, "I'm not going anywhere." The deputy head said, "Neither am I." They just stood there glaring at each other. The police were called. Both of them were arrested for fighting on school property. Students watched as they were put in separate police cars. The school governors held an emergency meeting that night. Both men were fired. Parents were outraged. The local news covered it. The video of the fight was played on the evening news. Both men were banned from working in education. The school had to bring in crisis counsellors because students were traumatised by seeing their leaders fight. I had a principal in California who set fire to a pile of confiscated cell phones in the parking lot. He'd been confiscating phones all year. Students weren't allowed to have them out during class. If a teacher caught you, the phone went to the principal's office. By the end of the semester, he had over 100 phones locked in a cabinet. The policy was that parents had to come pick them up. Most parents never did. The principal got fed up. He announced at an assembly that any phone not picked up by Friday would be destroyed. Students thought he was bluffing. He was not. Friday came. About 70 phones were still in his office. After school, he carried them all outside in a box. He dumped them in the parking lot. Students who were still on campus watched in confusion. He poured lighter fluid on the pile. Someone yelled, "What are you doing?" He said, "Teaching a lesson about following rules." He lit a match and dropped it. The phones went up in flames. Black smoke poured into the sky. Students were screaming. Teachers came running outside. Someone called the fire department. The principal just stood there watching them burn with his arms crossed. The fire department showed up and put it out. They asked who started the fire. He said, "I did." They asked why. He said, "They're my phones." The fire chief said, "You can't burn electronics." "That's toxic," the principal said. Too late. The fire chief called the police. The principal was arrested for illegal burning and destruction of property. Parents whose kids' phones were destroyed were furious. The phones were worth thousands of dollars combined. The district was sued by 15 families. They settled every case. The principal was fired and charged with multiple crimes. He got probation and community service. Students celebrated that he was gone. My cousin went to a school in Manchester where the head teacher had a breakdown during a governor's meeting and quit by screaming at everyone. The meeting was about budget cuts. The governors were suggesting cutting programs. The head teacher kept saying no to everything. Cut the art program? No. Cut sports? No. Reduce staff? No. The governors said something had to go. The head teacher said, "Then what's the point?" A governor said, "The point is staying within budget." The head teacher said, "The point is educating children." A governor said, "We can't educate anyone if we're bankrupt." The head teacher stood up and said, "You people don't care about education. You care about numbers." A governor said, "We care about both." The head teacher said, "Bullshit." The room went silent. The head teacher kept going. He said the governors were cowards. He said they were destroying the school. He said he was done. A governor said, "Done with what?" The head teacher said, "This job. All of it. I quit." He walked out of the meeting. Just left. The governors sat there in shock. Someone went after him. He was already in his car. He drove away. He never came back. Didn't clean out his office. Didn't give notice. Just quit. The school had no head teacher for a month. The deputy head had to take over. Parents were told there was a staffing change. The full story didn't come out for weeks. When it did, parents were split. Some said the governors pushed him too far. Others said he abandoned the students. He moved to Spain and opened a bar. I went to a school in Florida where our principal tackled a student who was trying to leave campus early. The student was a senior. He'd finished his last exam and wanted to go home. The policy was you had to stay until final bell even if you were done. He tried to walk out the front door. The principal was standing there. He said, "Where are you going?" The student said, "Home." The principal said, "It's not dismissal time." The student said, "I'm done with my exams." The principal said, "Doesn't matter, go back to the cafeteria." The student said, "No," and tried to walk past him. The principal grabbed his backpack. The student pulled away. The principal grabbed his arm. The student yanked his arm back and said, "Don't touch me." The principal snapped. He full-body tackled the student. Took him down to the ground like a linebacker. The student's head hit the floor. Other students screamed. Teachers came running. The principal was on top of the student, holding him down. The student was yelling, "Get off me!" A teacher pulled the principal off. The principal was breathing heavy and red in the face. The student stood up dizzy. He had a bump forming on his forehead. A teacher asked if he was okay. The student said, "He assaulted me." The principal said, "You were leaving campus without permission." The student said, "So you tackled me?" The principal didn't respond. The student's parents were called. They arrived and saw the bump on their son's head. They lost it. The dad got in the principal's face and said, "You put your hands on my kid?" The principal said. He was being defiant. The dad said, "He's 18. He can leave," the principal said. "Not during school hours." The dad said, "You're done." The parents called the police and a lawyer. The principal was arrested for battery. The student was taken to the hospital and diagnosed with a concussion. The parents sued for $50,000. They won. The principal was fired and lost his teaching license. He tried to appeal. The appeal was denied. Security footage showed him tackling an unarmed student who was just trying to leave. My friend attended a school in London where the head teacher smashed a student's laptop with a hammer during class. The school had a rule against gaming during lessons. A student was playing a game on his laptop during math. The teacher told him to stop. He minimized the window but didn't close it. The teacher saw and reported him to the head teacher. The head teacher came to the classroom, walked up to the student's desk and said, "Give me the laptop." The student said, "Why?" The head teacher said, "You were gaming." The student closed the laptop and said, "I stopped." The head teacher said, "Too late." She grabbed the laptop off his desk. The student said, "That's mine." The head teacher said, "Not anymore." She walked to the front of the class, put the laptop on the teacher's desk, and pulled a hammer out of her bag. Students gasped. The student said, "What are you doing?" The head teacher said, "Making a point." She raised the hammer and smashed it down on the laptop. The screen shattered. She hit it again and again. She destroyed it completely. Pieces of plastic and glass flew everywhere. Students were silent in shock. The student whose laptop it was started crying. He said, "That cost £1,000. The head teacher said, "Should have followed the rules." She dropped the hammer and walked out. The student called his parents from the hallway. They arrived within 20 minutes. They saw the destroyed laptop. They were furious. The dad said, "She can't do this." The mum took photos. They went to the school governors. The governors watched the classroom camera footage. The head teacher admitted she did it. She said it was a disciplinary measure. The governors said it was destruction of property. She was fired immediately. The family sued. The school had to pay for a new laptop plus damages. The head teacher was banned from teaching. She tried to argue she was setting an example. No one cared. I attended a school in Texas where our principal drove his car through the front doors of the school. It was the Monday after spring break. He'd been on vacation for a week. He came back and found out the vice principal had changed some of his policies while he was gone. He was furious. He stormed into the vice principal's office and they got into a screaming match. Staff heard them yelling from down the hall. The argument went on for 20 minutes. Then the principal left. Everyone thought he went home. He didn't. He got in his car, drove it across the front lawn, and crashed it straight through the glass front doors of the building. The sound was deafening. Glass exploded everywhere. His car ended up halfway in the lobby. Students were screaming. Teachers were running to see what happened. The principal got out of his car and walked toward the vice principal's office. Security stopped him. He was yelling that the vice principal had no authority to change his policies. Security called the police. The principal tried to get past them. They physically held him back. The police arrived. The principal was still yelling. They arrested him. He was charged with criminal mischief, reckless endangerment, and about 6 other things. No one was hurt, but it was pure luck. If it had been during class change, students would have been in that lobby. The school had to be evacuated. Classes were cancelled for 2 days while they fixed the doors. The principal's mugshot showed him smiling. Parents were horrified. He was fired, obviously. He lost his teaching license. He was sentenced to a year in jail. The vice principal quit 2 weeks later from the trauma. I went to a school in Birmingham where the head teacher threw a student's crutches out a window. The student had broken her leg and was on crutches for 6 weeks. She was late to class one day because it took her longer to get up the stairs. The head teacher saw her in the hallway and asked why she was late. The student explained. The head teacher said, "That's not an excuse." The student said, "I'm on crutches." The head teacher said, "Leave earlier." The student said, "I left at the same time as always." The head teacher said, "Not my problem." The student tried to walk away. The head teacher grabbed one of her crutches. The student said, "What are you doing?" The head teacher pulled both crutches away from her. The student nearly fell. She caught herself on the wall. The head teacher walked to the nearest window, opened it, and threw the crutches out. They fell 2 stories into the bushes. The student started crying. She said, "I need those." The head teacher said, "You can get them after school. Maybe you'll be on time tomorrow." The student was stuck in the hallway. She couldn't walk without the crutches. A teacher found her sitting on the floor crying. The teacher asked what happened. The student explained. The teacher was horrified. She went to get the crutches. The head teacher tried to stop her. The teacher said, "You threw a disabled student's crutches out a window?" The head teacher said, "She's not disabled. She has a broken leg." The teacher said, "That's a disability." The teacher retrieved the crutches and gave them back to the student. The student's parents were called. They came to the school immediately. They met with the head teacher. She showed no remorse. She said the student needed to learn time management. The parents filed a complaint with the local authority. An investigation was launched. The head teacher was suspended. Multiple students came forward saying she'd been cruel to them too. She was fired after the investigation. The family sued for emotional distress. They won. I had a principal in Georgia who pepper sprayed a group of students because they were talking too loud in the hallway. It was between classes, normal noise level. Students were at their lockers talking to friends. The principal was walking through doing his usual rounds. He stopped and yelled, "Quiet!" Students got quieter but didn't go silent. He yelled again. Students still talked. He pulled out pepper spray from his belt and sprayed it into the crowd, not at one person, into the air in a group of about 20 students. Kids started screaming. Their eyes were burning. They were coughing and gasping. Some fell to the ground. Teachers came running. The principal just stood there. A teacher said, "What did you do?" The principal said, "They wouldn't be quiet." The teacher said, "You pepper sprayed children." The principal said, "They'll be fine." They were not fine. Multiple students had to go to the hospital. Several had asthma and had attacks from the spray. Parents were called. An ambulance showed up. The principal was arrested at the school. He was charged with assault on minors. Parents were threatening to lynch him. The school district released a statement condemning his actions. He was fired before he even made bail. The families sued. The district settled for over $1 million total. The principal went to trial. He was convicted and sentenced to 3 years in prison. He served 18 months. When he got out, he moved states. He's not allowed within 1,000 feet of any school. Alright, that's it for principals losing their minds. If you survived school with a normal principal, consider yourself lucky. Make sure you're subscribed for more insane stories, and I'll see you in the next one.